sensitive or has like a little button to check if you're muted or not, just check that before you record, because I don't think I checked before I started. Okay. I wanted to do something a little bit more informal today, but it's still pretty focused on just wellness and well-being. This is for everybody who feels like they're a bit lost in the world, or that they've lost their way, or that the odds are stacked against them. I want you to know that you're capable of completing what you've been given. Even if people at work or people at school or your friends tell you that you're unrealistic or your goals are unachievable or they're not a big fan of what you're doing, know that your intent, your energy, and your desire was pure at the start, and all it is keeping that energy the same, right? Keep that energy, because it could take you places, you've never imagined, and it's just the way the world works, I believe. Whether you call it karma, whether you call it just desserts, whether you call it bad luck, I believe all of it can be summed to you get out what you put back into the world. And sometimes what you put out into the world is gonna be really good, and you might receive really shit things for a long time. But I don't know if you can hear that. That's a motorcycle driving by. There are always so many loud cars, and like, I don't know if people are racing per se, but where I live, there's always a big driving culture. And I really kind of like that, actually. I know some people may say that they don't like loud surroundings, but to me, being on the road always signified life in a way, or people's energy and being lively, because it's hard to like get a car, it's hard to get your license, it's hard to get a motorcycle, it's hard to maintain those things, and I think a lot of people forget or underestimate the importance of that ability. Like, it's a skill to be able to do that well, to not get, it's a skill to not get into an accident, to not hurt yourself, or worse, hurt other people. And it's, I don't know, for me, it's a bit of a turn on if somebody can drive really well, or if they kind of know what they're talking about in an automotive sense, because the barrier for entry is always so high with something like that, that you really have to throw yourself into it to learn it. And I know you can say that about a lot of things. Like, you can say that about books, you can say that about games, you can say that about practically anything. But something about cars and driving something feels so different, because you have to be in the passenger seat. There's like real risk to your life, but people who get into that hobby still acknowledge that fully. It's not like a racing sim. It's not, what's a good racing series? Gran Turismo. It's not like Gran Turismo where you're just hopping in a track minutes to an hour, you actually have to get into a car and drive around a track. And if you crash in real life, there's real loss to be had. Your car just doesn't come back to the shop and then it's brand new and then you can race again. No, you might not be able to race for like another 2 to 3 months. So I always thought that was really cool. Speaking of Gran Turismo, I've been listening to a lot more of the soundtracks from the older games. I really like Gran Turismo when they were still like just for the PS2, because the artists that they hired for those soundtracks really captured a specific era of music. It's called DNB, or drum and bass. Drum and bass was kind of like my whole childhood, and I didn't realize it until I kind of grew up, and I always noted how infectious and how just poppy the beats are, and they scratch a really nice part of my brain where I could listen to that for hours. I could listen to somebody just making D&B over a jazz beat for like hours, and it's just so satisfying. What else was I gonna say? Oh yeah, I wanted to also talk about like the renaissance behind D&B, because for like the past, I don't know, since like 2008, 2009, there hadn't been that intense of a D&B kind of scene, or it's really been more underground compared to like 808s and other beats like that. But that energy still somehow managed to stay relevant, especially nowadays. If you look on YouTube, there's what they call breakcore, and the best way I would describe breakcore is the TV static that would come on after you fall asleep and there's no more TV to be watched, and yet there's also Michael Jackson playing in the background at the same time. Because one thing my friends always say about breakcore is it's so hard to find the beat sometimes. Like, you don't know when to bob your head, you don't know when to start shaking out. You know how if you're at like a party or a dance or a club and you see everybody trying to find like the rhythm to step or bang their head and just mosh, and sometimes you just can't find it at all. I think that's everyone's experience with breakcore, and ultimately once you're able to find that, it's so satisfying. And it really, once you understand like one of them, being able to go to different people or different artists really opens up, really blossoms. And what I notice is that it's ultimately a derivative of drum and bass. It's just grown into this really fast-paced kind of electric, what's the word I'm thinking of? Electric fiend, I guess. I wouldn't even consider it like music anymore. It's almost alive in a way, because it jerks. The songs always jerk and move around in ways that shock you and make you feel like you're on a roller coaster ride, compared to some more melodic songs that have very traditional 4 beat counts, and you always know when it's gonna stop and start. With breakcore, you don't know when that's gonna stop and start. And my main point here was that breakcore kind of distills human essence, because human essence is kind of like that, where it may stop and start at certain intervals first opportunity, because you really never know when it's gonna come around again. And that's something I've learned over the years, or just in my life in general, is that every opportunity just needs to be grasped. And if you let it go, be comfortable with letting it go. Acknowledge that you let it go. Acknowledge that it isn't there anymore. But be present in what you're currently doing. So that way you can appreciate the things that come next. Appreciating things that eventually become your life. Something I deal with my friends a lot is that they, like most people, crave validation for their work. I'm friends with a lot of artists, or at least people who are into art, and they're always uncertain about whether people like them for their art or for them as people. And I told them, well, don't you see yourself as an artist? And they said yes. So I said, so can you really separate the two? Can you really separate the art from the artist if you've defined that as your job and your being? That would be like asking to see Prince separated from a musician. You can't really do that because that was his whole life. That was his whole career. That was what his reason for existing was. And after I said that, something just clicked in them, where not all of them, but a lot of them started locking in, and by locking in, they just really hunkered down and focused on who they were as artists. And it seems like they're evolving really, really quickly, which I wasn't expecting. At least, okay, I believe in my friends, but I wasn't expecting them to just develop like that. You know? I guess I was surprised that what I said could be a catalyst for so much change, because I personally never considered my words to be that powerful in people's minds. Like, even if people ask me for advice, I always tend to err on the side of being blunt and not really offering too much insight and just taking them at face value. And if the conversation does go that deep, I just give it to them as straightforward as possible, because giving vague advice has always felt facetious to me. Like, how are you gonna give advice to people and be vague about your intent and meaning? Those people came to you even if it's for something small, even if they don't really want your opinion. That's another thing. I never know if people actually want my opinion on a topic, and I always question that. So a couple years back, what I started doing, because I was just so tired of like, oh my god, do they actually want me to say something? I just straight up asked now. I was like, do you want my opinion, or do you want me to just listen? And a lot of them are taken aback at first, so I don't always ask all the time. But if I notice that a conversation is really winding in a way that feels like I'm running up a wall, I will always ask. There it is again. I will always ask, do you want to hear what I have to say, or would you like me to just hear you out? Because a lot of people just want to be heard out. And there's nothing wrong with that. there's nothing wrong with wanting to be heard out and comforted about your position. And I want you to know that that's why I'm here right now. I'm here to comfort you about your position in the world. In whatever world you're in, I want you to know that your position is valid. Even if it feels like the world is against you, know that your energy came from somewhere pure, and your intent came from somewhere truthful. I want you to know this because a lot of people tend to lose their way. A lot of people who start out in an industry or a job pivot in the same industry to move rooted in bad feelings or bad energy, and I don't want you to do that. Remember who you wanted to do this for originally, whether it was for yourself or for your lover or for people who you love. Remember why you started on this path, because it's so important when looking back on things to know how you ended up where you were. It's really important because a lot of us tend to forget our history and we kind of throw it to the wayside and just live day to day. And some days that's okay, some days it's okay to just live in the moment. But we all have very limited time here. It seems like we have forever, but that's not the case. So I want to refocus you here as well. I want you to know that this is your chance. This is your moment. This is where everything comes together, and you are going to do big and beautiful things. You are going to do things that will change the world around you. It's ultimately all in your hands. All of the work, all of the progress, all of the changes you've made to end up at this point. It begins now. It's important to remember this because you are in the driver's seat and you shouldn't let it go. Don't let other people choose your path for you. Choose what's right for you. And that doesn't mean throw people away. That doesn't mean throw people to the wayside or ignore them or discard them as if they have no value to you. That means if you have to choose someone, not necessarily remove, but choose yourself. Because nobody else is going to have a bad time but you if you don't prioritize yourself. Give yourself that time and space to heal. Whether it's I was thinking about hobbies, whether it's video games, whether it's sleeping, whether it's people watching, even if it's like vices. I'm not opposed to vices. I'm not opposed to vices. make sure to participate in those every once in a while, because that just might be what you need to get back to 100%. And 100% is everything. We always want 100%. You know what happens when you are at 100%? You're unstoppable. You're magnificent. You're like a beam of light that just shines down upon the world when you're at 100%. So could you do that for me? Could you get back to 100%? Could you find your way back to 100% and then get back on the path? Whatever path it is, whether it's greatness, whether it's hardship, whether it's turmoil, whether it's freedom, could you get back on that path? There's a dog barking in the background. He's a very loud dog. He's a very cute dog, though. That's one of my neighbor's dogs. Also, my dog is... Oh, that was a bit loud. Whoops. My dog is sleeping in the background. But he heard me speaking like this, and now he's curled up around my feet. He's underneath my desk right now. He's just sleeping on my foot. My foot is actually falling asleep soon, so I might end it soon. I want to leave you with this last comforting bit. There was never a time in the world where people stopped wanting. It isn't bad to want things as a person. Oh my god, you can hear the dog. See, even that dog wants attention. But nobody who is alive ever stopped wanting something. And if you're still here, that means you want something. It could be a piece of candy. It could be a nice hearty meal. It could even be a nice day of weather. But if you're feeling lost, find that thing that you're wanting, even if it's bed rotting. No matter what it is, find that thing you want, and suddenly your life will change. It'll change in vast ways, and I can't wait till you come back. I can't wait to hear about where you've gone, where you've been, what you're doing. I can't wait to see